that 13 is not a lucky number. Many say it's the number of the devil. I say it is paraskevidya I'll say it again. It is paraskevidya. Okay, I'll say it slow. It is paraskevidya. This is also known as the fear of number 13. Did you know this fear of number 13 results in financial losses in excess of 800 million annually? As people avoid marrying, traveling, or in most severe cases, even working. But what's so unlucky about the number 13, and how did this numerical superstition ever get started? The superstition started from the oldest legal documents where a law was forgotten to be cited due to a clerical error, and it apparently happened to be the 13th line. Many also believe the 13th guest to arrive on the Last Supper was a person who betrayed Jesus. Some of ancient Norse lore believes that the devil was introduced by the treacherous and the mischievous god Loki, who was the 13th god to spoil the balance of the 12 sitting gods, so on and so forth. So, welcome to my 13th episode of Spiritual Mantra. Namaskaram, Swagatam, Suswagatam, Namaste, and hello. Today, we continue and conclude what we started last week: the mysterious universe, symbols and significance, forms of pagans and the sounds of universe, along with the sacred geometry. I will be lying to all of you if I say I'm going to unveil the vast secrets of the universe today. Our existence, our creation, the creation of the universe, and the universe beyond ours, all are mysteriously connected. I'm not the one, or I can say I'm no one to unveil those secrets. But instead, today, I will be handing you the key to open the vast horizon of your vision, the doors leading you on the path of exploration. I bet after today you will see yourself, your existence, various symbolism, your existence, and other things much differently, and make attempts to receive messages from your universe. Keep yourself open to the serendipities and coincidences, is all I can say. Spiritual connectedness does not come with age. No, it does not elevate in any age. So if you are beyond yourself, me and others, celebrate. For those who are reaching there, you're doing good. And those who just have no time to think of spirituality, you will eventually. At the end, we all do. Because spirituality is just not how we see in movies, advertisements, and public commercials, or some of the show of meditations, or being a part of a huge cult following. No, my friends, spiritual connection is exactly the opposite of what you really see. One fine day, you and only you will decide to go for it. And in many ways, that will look like a normal life to you. Let me give you an example. You will start to question your social circle dwellings. You will start to question your idea of wisdom. You, in spite of not being an animal person, will decide to get a pet. You will begin to start seeing problems that seemed huge as very trivial. You will instill more trust in yourself, and you will start to trust your instinct more often. Initially, your awareness will make you depressed, very, very depressed. Of the time you probably wasted, and by the end of all, you will wake up. This is a level of awareness. It is like a wheel of awareness, a mindfulness exercise I covered in my last episode. You have to believe me, self-awareness is the key to progressive growth. After which there is no stopping you to reach more enriched life, the bliss of wisdom. The question you will ask is, how would you know you are seeding the path right for the growth? There are certain correlative lifestyles that will enhance your path and nourish your thought. Good reads, good vibrational music, good eating habits. Start observing your inner self with honest view. Your surroundings, symbols, connected data, appearing of numbers, figures, and designs, they all have a meaning. It can crop up in any form in everyday life, your perfume choices, your color choices, your your dressing choices. It could be anything. It could those messages could be hidden anywhere. Let me give you an example right from my own experience. There was a time when my perfume use was more exotic, more luxurious, like cashmere. Then my olfactory nerves started to seek something better, more intense. So I was hell bent for an interval of time with Gucci guilty. Those were the days that something inside me was changing. I was happier to be a loner after parties. I started to feel I need to detox from so many people. In sane world, it would be considered to be a depressive behavior. But instead, I took to reading and visiting my local library more often. Continued on my esoteric journey and reading about mysteries of universal symbols and ancient pagans and their surprisingly powerful healing properties. Life otherwise was very normal, with normal routines, with a sense of being here and now, enjoying every bit of moment, and suddenly my perfume choice changed. It was the one, and I smiled. I felt like I was the chosen one for a purpose. Now you see what I mean? Within a year, I had set up my business for holistic healing, and healing was my calling. I had come to that realization. From then till now, my perfume has been angel. Not that I believe I'm an angel, but I am something to those people whose life I have touched in some or the other way. This realization came to me much later when I started putting the pieces together. And I started to count the number of times I used to collide with the infinity sign, or just the word infinity in commercial serials, billboards, on trucks, the number 9, and so on and so forth. This show is aiming towards something similar. It is what I call as the spiritual spontaneity. Let's go somewhere way behind in the past, dating the 15th or the 16th century, where the whole idea of the pagan symbol was further realized and used as significant symbol. During that era, where many herbal practitioners were executed, thinking as they were witches, since they were exploring the healing process through herbal alchemy, a knowledge that they possessed higher over the others. A society not very informed at that point of time. Later on, as the society got more informed, pagan symbols were surfaced again, and the studies started in England on Druids' writings on stones. So, I certainly would love to talk more deeper about the history of ancient theories on pagans and symbols, but unfortunately, we will run out of time. So, I will go straight to cover some symbolic meaning of certain relevant spiritual symbol used widely. So, people not only use them as jewelry and magic, but also connect with our individual lives on a deeper level. Some symbols are used to represent elements and others to represent ideas. The air symbol is a triangle with the apex cross over with a straight line. And air is one of the four classical elements and is often used in many cultures around the world. Air is also the element of the east, connected to the soul and the breath of life. Air is associated with colors yellow and white. In pagan symbolism, the other elements are fire, earth, and water, and they are also very widely used. Pentacles. The pentacles is a five-pointed star or a pentagram contained within it is a circle. The 5 points of the star represents the four classical elements along with the fifth element, which is typically either the spirit or the self. It is also considered a symbol of protection. The elven star or the seven pointed star. However, it has different names and can be associated with many other magical traditions. It is also a reminder that 7 is a sacred number in many magical traditions. It is connected with the 7 days of the week, the 7 pillars of the wisdom, and many other magical theories. In Kabbalah, 7 is connected to the spear of victory, and in Hinduism, it is also called as the celestial number of God. So, Then we go to sun wheel. Although sometimes referred to as sun wheel, the symbol represents the wheel of the year. The term sun wheel comes from the solar cross, which was a calendar used to mark the solace and the equinoxes in some pre-Christian European cultures. The besom. The besom has an important symbolic role to play in many practices. It is rounded broom made up of large pole having twigs or straw tied at one end. It is a symbol. It is symbolic of purification and cleansing, as it is ritualistically used for cleaning and sacred places and sweeping out the negative energies. The traditional besom was made up of shaft made of ash, bristles made of birch twigs, and a binding cord made from willow strands. Ash represents masculinity, Aramis love, and protection, while birch is symbolic of femininity and purification. Thus, the besom signifies their union. It forms a part of a marriage ceremony, which is the newlywed jumps over it to strengthen their vows. So, the triple moon symbol. This symbol is found in many neo-pagan traditions as a symbol of goddesses. You will also see many women wearing a minimalistic jewelry having this triple moon symbol. They look very pretty. The first crescent represents the waxing phase of the moon, meaning new beginnings, new life, and regeneration. The center circle is a symbol of full moon, the time when magic is at its most potent and powerful. Finally, the last crescent represents the waning moon, meaning a time to do banishing magic and to send things away. The triskel. In the Celtic word, the triskel or the three spiral swirls originating from one center is found carved in the Neolithic stones all over Ireland and Western Europe. For modern pagans, it is sometimes adopted to represent the three Celtic realms of earth, sea, and sky. Then comes the triquetral, the three interconnecting loop. In some modern tradition, it represents the connection of mind, body, and soul. It is also seen in many holistic businesses logos, and they look like three interconnecting petals. And in Celtic based pagan groups, it is a symbolic of again three realms of earth, sea, and sky. So these were some pagan symbols and a small historic overview. Now let me cover a quick overview on sacred geometry. I picked this data from one of my blog study references written by Randall Morgan in 2019. So it's not a very old data, or it's a very recent study, and it has been very recently blogged. So I'll read a little bit about the sacred geometry and what sacred geometry is all about. You'll be astonished by the end of this episode after I finish some sacred geometry and the correlation of it in modern use. Okay, so here we go. So the sacred geometry is often referred to as the architecture of the universe. It is found throughout the natural world. It is all around us and in one of the very few subjects that satisfy both the left brain and the right brain hemisphere simultaneously. So it satisfies the left brain's desire for logical, sequential, and objective data. It also satisfies the right brain's desire for random, intuitive, and subjective data. So let's start with some of the sacred geometrical symbols, and we start with the seed of life. The seed of life is a universal symbol that also represents the 7 days of creation. It is found in all the major religions and can be seen in many sites around the world, such as churches, mosques, prayer books, and ancient temples. The two-dimensional projection of the seed of life contains 7 overlapping circles. It has been used for centuries as a symbol of blessing and protection. The egg of life, a symbol that has been used to represent new life, rebirth, and fertility. The egg of life is the second iteration of a process that constructs the flower of life. So, adding 6 additional circles to the seed of life, you are able to produce the egg of life. This can also be formed by the 8 spheres containing within the three-dimensional Metatron's cube. The flower of life. The flower of life was known around the world in ancient times and has been found in Ireland, Turkey, Egypt, Greece, China, Israel, Germany, England, Tibet, Japan, and Sweden. The typical depiction of flower of life always stops after 19th circles. The remaining circles are hidden outside the bounds of the outer circle. In the past, this image and knowledge related to the flower of life was so sacred that they couldn't allow it to become common knowledge. Out of the complete flower of life pattern, a new shape emerges, the fruit of life. The flower of life is said to be the actual blueprint of the universe, containing the basic design of every atomic and molecular structure, life form, etc. Essentially, everything in existence. I repeat, everything in existence. Modern science and quantum physics are confirming the cosmic significance of these ancient sacred geometric forms, which represent the building blocks of our physical universe. The ancients knew about the energetic nature of our existence. Our sacred patterns, such as egg of life, seed of life, and tree of life, also exist within the flower of life pattern. Just imagine the power of sacred geometry. So now we come to the tree of life. The tree of life is another popular universal symbol. It represents numerous systems across varying cultures and religions. Like all the other symbol, it is not identified by any single culture, and it has been used around the world for centuries. So what does the tree of life represent? A connection to everything, including the things we cannot see or the void beyond. It reminds you that you're not alone in the universe, but rather a part of a vast interconnected network. The fruit of life. The 13 spheres represents an extremely powerful sacred geometric pattern known as the fruit of life. Mind you, the 13 spheres. If you remember the way I started my series today, it was we are on the 13th episode, and it was a little bit on the number 13 and the fear of number 13. So, the 13 spheres represent an extremely powerful sacred geometric pattern known as the fruit of life, considered the holy of holies of sacred geometry because it's hidden within the ancient and well known flower of life pattern. The fruit of life is composed of 13 spheres. This is actually the 2D representation of a 3D structure. 13 represents unity and transition between worlds and dimensions. Those of you who play an instrument know the chromatic scale of 12 notes. The 13th note is actually repeating the first note but on a higher frequency. When you attain a higher octave, you enter a higher dimension. If we connect all the centers of the 13 circles, the result is 78 lines, which creates a structure known as the Metatron's cube. Now, so what is Metatron's cubes? We come to Metatron's cube. One of the most fascinating aspects of sacred geometry is the symbol known as the Metatron's cube. So, who is Metatron? He was considered to be the scribe of God. This would make him the equivalent of the ancient Egyptian scribes of gods known as the Thoth. According to legend, a scribe of God would understand the basic principles of creation, which are almost always associated with sacred geometry. Metatron's cube traces back to nature's first pattern and the 13 circles that are found inside the fourth circle in nature's first pattern when you connect the centers of all the 13 circles. The Hermetic axiom reads, all is mind. The universe is mental. And Metatron's cube is teaching us about this conceptual mental nature of the universe. And the current experiments in quantum physics are also teaching us this exact same thing. Interesting, isn't it? So, grid of life. The star tetrahedron is the basis of the 64 grid. Tetrahedron, also known as the grid of life. This is the masculine equivalent to the flower of life pattern. As the name suggests, this shape is made up of 64 tetrahedrons, which, as you know, is one of the Platonic solids. When the 64 tetrahedron is overlaid on the flower of life, this represents a powerful concept. The spheres represent space and the lines represent where space and time come together. One of the most fascinating aspects of the 64 tetrahedron is the number 64 itself and now how it appears throughout the natural world. Now, this is going to astonish most of you listeners today. Listen carefully. I will read the last line once again for you. One of the most fascinating aspects of the 64 tetrahedron is the number 64 itself and how it appears throughout the natural world. Here are few examples. There are 64 codons in human DNA. 64 is the number of cells we have before the cells start to bifurcate, differentiate after conception. 64 is also the fundamental number in computer memory and bits of code. 64 is encoded in the tetragrammaton within the Hebrew Bible, which is the four-letter theonym YHWH. That means God is Hebrew. 64 is the number of generations from Adam until Jesus. 64 manifestations of Lord Shiva in Hinduism. 64 squares in chess and checkerboards. 64 hexagrams in the I Ching. 64 tantras, which is form of Hinduism. 64 is the maximum number of strokes in a Chinese character. Interesting, isn't it? It is interesting. This metaphysical symbol can produce many trees of life which radiate inward. This is why the 64 tetrahedron is a symbolic of linking up one's individual parts in harmony with our soul family. It is said that connecting with your soul/star family will amplify each individual's energy to accomplish and manifest one's goals. A true symbol of mastermind principle of harmony with among a group of individuals. The last symbol which I'm going to cover today is the Merkaba symbol. Merkaba symbol is also spelled as Merkaba, translates to light, spirit and body. The symbol consists of two intersecting tetrahedrons that rotate in opposite directions. This creates an energy field that is commonly referred as the light body. Now, I guess this data would have been overwhelmingly intriguing to many of you. And most of you would find it difficult to even remember. I don't. We always have to refer back, and the best way to go is to know more and more. Before I leave, let me give you some fun facts you will love. Sacred geometry is not a religion. One of the biggest myths of sacred geometry is that it is a religion or a cult, something you have to believe in. No. The fun fact is, it's not. It's something that doesn't need faith. This is because it is found throughout the entire universe. It's just like math. It's discovered and can be found anywhere in the universe. So the second fun fact before I leave is that sacred geometry can be found in numbers and in music. Just like what I have mentioned before, sacred geometry is like math. It can be found in numbers, but also it can be found in music. In my next episode, I will try to go more in detail about the correlation of numbers, music, and sacred geometry. But for the time being, I will like to leave you with a very short note. And I think many of you have heard about the sequence before. and people from who are math wizards and people who are in coding and IT would have heard this before. It is called the Fibonacci sequence, and it can be translated to geometry, in fact, sacred geometry. So it's astonishing, and some of the very well-known musician has actually played the Fibonacci sequence, which is a numerical sequence of numbers, and they've played that on their instruments, and they've actually found a very close correlation of that music as the music of nature. So again, it is very astonishing how science, math, universal sacred geometry, the numbers, everything, the DNA, the our the formation of a conception of 64 cells, the 64 checkers, and so many things are so closely related to each other. And just imagine, we are running after small trivial issues, small trivial problems of not able to achieve something small, like a small vacation, like a small watch we couldn't buy last deal. It's trivial. It's literally trivial. The moment you start getting aware about your existence and the bigger picture of atoms and matter, yourself, and other things, these things will be very, very trivial. Trust me. Happiness, bliss, wisdom, all comes along the way. It's the way to enhance your spiritual being. So we meet again next week. Same time, same place, same portal, the universal portal on Spiritual Mantra. So bye, adios, and namaste.